going on, everyone? Welcome to the Gaelic Gridiron podcast. We have a very special Super Bowl preview episode in store. It has been a while since we have been here. Delighted to be back with the lads, Jimmy English, Kevin Kelly, Stephen Kearns, back reunited after a bit of a break. Big game down in the Bayou this Sunday, Super Bowl 59, taking place at about 11:30 Irish time. Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles about to duel it out for a chance to lift the Lombardi. Lads, how are we doing? Good to see your faces. It's been a while. We all good?
Sounded like you were about to say Pittsburgh
It
Steelers
did.
there,
It
Jimmy. It
did.
was on
I
the
almost
tip of
have a
your
mental
tongue.
slip.
Unfortunately, not this year for the Steelers, but some big news potentially coming out of
We'll
Dublin
see.
this week. We'll see. We'll see.
No,
Trust
London,
me.
London.
Trust me, bro.
Yeah, no, it's all good. It's going to be super boring bowl because it's the Chiefs and the Eagles again. Yawn. Nobody cares.
There's been a bit of that going around, actually, a bit of a vibe that not everyone's really into this game. I mean, that's just what I'm getting, and I'm kind of feeling it myself. Kev, what's your mood like for the big game?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I mean, look, a Super Bowl is going to be exciting one way or the other. I think, like, the lead up is just like, yeah, you don't like two teams I really don't care
Yeah,
too much for, like, on either side of the AFC or NFC, but it is what it is. It's the big dance of what we love to talk about. So, I mean, regardless, we're going to have something to talk about next week, and we'll have I'm sure we're going to have some poor ref calls. We're going to have some viral moments, and maybe Saquon will do something to knock Mahomes off his little perch there.
something magical. He definitely has had a hell of a season, and it'll be interesting to see if he does kind of get past Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen for MVP tonight. In fact, the NFL honors are on. We will definitely be back next week to recap the season. It's been a great season, and hopefully it will be capped off by a great Super Bowl on Sunday night. Like we mentioned there, that it is a rematch from 2 years ago where the Chiefs rallied to defeat the Eagles 38-35. Bit of a heartbreak that time around. Now the Eagles have a chance at revenge. And Twist, they seem like they've been the kind of they've had most of the momentum this season compared to the Chiefs offensively and defensively. They've had Saquon at the helm of the offense. They've had the league's leading defense, and the bookies seem to favor them currently at the minute. And do you think that I suppose the whole hype around the rematch is going to add any extra motivation for this time around, or is it just kind of blinders on and get the job done and finish out a strong season?
I think there's a lot of distractions that the players have to block out for this Super Bowl. Like, Trump is going to be there. He'll be the first ever sitting US president to attend the Super Bowl. So that's going to increase security. That's going to delay people getting
Yeah.
into the stadium, all that stuff. It's going to be the distraction of people complaining about Taylor Swift being there. The best distraction so far of the build up to the Super Bowl has been Fox giving Jameis Winston a microphone and letting him loose asking players questions.
Chaos.
Like, that's the highlight of the build up to this. And then there's going to be the constant distraction of, every call is going to be under the microscope. The referees have come out recently and said that it's ridiculous that there's a conspiracy theory that they favor one team over another, and got really defensive about it. So that's just fueling the conspiracy theories further. But in terms of like overall offense, defense, the Eagles have looked better offensively. They've put teams away better. They haven't relied on 1 point leads. They haven't relied on fluky blocked field goals, bad snaps, poorly thrown, perfectly thrown interceptions, if you want to look at it from their point of view. Whereas the Eagles' defense have shut down teams. Saquon has ground teams into dust. Kenny Pickett's Super Bowl champion, baby.
Kev, what's the view like on the added motivation of the whole kind of Twist mentioned there some of the distractions. You have Trump, you have Taylor Swift, all the kind of noise going around, and from what I've seen online as well, I mean, even compared, I think, to the buzz of the game being in Vegas last year, there just seems to be a bit of a lull, and you have to wonder if all those distractions are going to add to the whole vibe of it, or detract from it, really.
I mean, look, I don't even want to give that man the airtime that he doesn't
Fair,
deserve. So
fair.
I'm just gonna say I think the big part for me is that I think with what happened on New Year's in New Orleans will probably be a bigger talking point and a
Mm,
bigger kind of safety concern in terms of
yeah.
how the security around the city will be. I think that the cops and the local PD there are going to be on their game, just making sure that anybody that is coming in and out is doing so like for the right reasons. So, look, I mean, look, the game is the game, and that's what we're here to talk about. I'm not here to talk about any of that other nonsense because it is nonsense in the end of the day. Look, I think I heard it today, but Vic Fangio, the defensive coordinator for the Eagles, is 0-7 against Patrick Mahomes. I'm not sure if that's in just playoffs or his whole career, but that's not a good stat for the Eagles going into this game.
Um,
No,
Jalen Hurts was quoted, in the build of the game, saying that the loss to the Chiefs back 2 years ago lit a fire within him, and I suppose especially after the late season collapse last year, where they could have had the opportunity to come back, they didn't. They had, we all know how that season went down for them. Is this kind of are the Eagles? Is this their kind of opportunity? They're right on the doorstep now. They just have to get over that final hump,
I mean,
and
like, it's lit a fire under Jalen Hurts. That's he has played a bit better. His game has improved since that loss. He's had a few dips and stuff. It will light a fire under him. It will light a fire under the entire city of Philadelphia, whether you win or lose. Um, that's the negative side of it. But when you look at the whole, you've got the motivation of the Eagles wanting revenge, the revenge game, the motivation of them, basically for those who actually want to watch it, who are not in Kansas City, who wants them to stop the threepeat. But there's also the rumors going around that this is Travis Kelce's last game. And when a player says they want to retire, a team will rally around that player and try to make sure that his last game is one to go out on. We've seen it from Steelers' perspective. Ben went out, victory over the Browns. Jerome Bettis wanted to retire. Ben said, "Give me one more season, and we'll win you that Super Bowl." They went and won Super Bowl XL. So I think you've got the tale of two teams there: the revenge game and this is Travis's possibly last game as a NFL player before he goes on to some lucrative deal with CBS or Fox or somewhere.
The Eras Tour.
The Eras Tour, yeah.
he's definitely had more TV appearances than touchdowns and ad appearances and special slot appearances. So he has denied those rumors and anything that he said. Of course, he's not going to admit it in the run up to the Super Bowl, but anytime he seems to have been questioned on it, he's like just always talked about wanting to keep playing and wanting to keep doing more. So
I
it'll be
mean, look at
interesting.
it this way: what does he have left to prove? 2-time Super Bowl champion. He's all the records as for a tight end for a Kansas City tight end. He's basically a lock for the NFL Hall of Fame on his first year of eligibility at this point. The only thing he has to prove is if he wins, I say if the Chiefs win, he will announce retirement there and then on the field because he'll be the first team to do the threepeat. What else can you do from that? The chance of them going 4 in a row, it's already astronomical going 3 in a row. Chance of them going 4 in a row after
Yeah,
that.
but we all said that at the start of the year. We said that it was ridiculous to think that they could go three in a row at the start of the year. But look, here we are, sitting here, the Chiefs basically a shoe in for their third in a row. It's like, why would they not go for a fourth and a fifth and a fucking sixth? Like there's no stopping them at this stage. When you have the referees in your pocket, what are you gonna do? You know?
Well,
Shoot them.
If the Eagles can't stop them this time around, I mean, it's a already a dynasty, but it's just the birth of something completely new and unheralded. If the result goes the way that we think it's going to go on Sunday,
Yeah, I think the wild card for this game is going to be Saquon. If Saquon is stopped dead, the Eagles are just going to sputter. Jalen Hurts, while he's played well and he's had that motivation and he has rallied the team, you look at his stats for the past of the last games leading up to this, the playoff games and the regular season, he hasn't thrown for a lot of yards. He hasn't thrown a lot of passes.
AJ
Why
Brown's
would you?
been
You
AJ Brown
just
went missing as well, basically for most of the season. Once they
yeah.
switched to a run
But
first
why
offense,
would you when you can just turn and hand the ball to
mm.
Saquon? So if he goes and the game is put on Jalen Hurts' shoulders, that might be the downfall of the Eagles. So obviously, I mean, it's a tired talking point. Everyone is saying it. The Chiefs just need to stop Saquon, and the Lombardi is theirs.
Kev, who do you reckon has the most motivation going into this one? The Chiefs for the three-peat or the Eagles for as a revenge game from that loss?
Yeah, I mean, both have their reasons. Obviously, I think that the league as a whole is behind Philadelphia not wanting the Chiefs to go on the three-peat. I'm speaking purely on the conversations I've had with other NFL fans in the lead up to this week. Um, Nobody wants to see it. Like even I don't even know if you were a Chiefs fan. Like I don't know if you enjoy this.
Mm,
Because, but honestly though, like if I was watching my team, like I was chatting to my brother about it, and he was like, "This is kind of representative of how United were in the Premier League in the 2000s. Like they
mm,
were just unbeatable. It's like they got all the questionable calls. They weren't necessarily the best team. They just won all
yeah.
the time. And it wasn't even enjoyable. So, at some point, it's like, I think that this year is going to be the Eagles. I really do think that they're going to pull this one out and just absolutely stomp on Kansas City. I don't even think it's going to be close.
You're so what they're going to blow out almost or
I
close
think
to
a
blowout.
blowout is what I'm seeing.
I mean, they've definitely been more dominant this year, whereas the Chiefs have always been like just a kind of a formality where you kind of knew they were going to get back just because of all the, obviously there was the calls, the favorable calls, the almost league wide bias towards them. Like the Eagles were just dominant throughout the whole season, or the majority of the season, where the Chiefs just kind of plodded through some of their games and somehow ended back up where they are. Now, obviously, a really good win against the Bills in the AFC Championship game, but even then they weren't firing on all cylinders. Where the Eagles were just rampant, really.
Well, the Chiefs haven't had to really deal with a top end running back. They just haven't. They haven't had to deal with a really top end offensive line who know how to create holes for a stud running back. They just haven't had to deal with that. So what happens when you punch them in the mouth and then they're down by 14 points? What do you do? Like you can't just think that Travis Kelce and Gray on the other side, like the other tight end, are just gonna magically like bring you down the field every time because that defense on the Eagle side is solid. Like it's the number one defense in the league.
Mm.
So like everything is kind of pointing at the Eagles. And as Twist said, it's like it is obviously a over exaggerated talking point at this point. But if Saquon gets going, it's going to be a really long night for the Kansas City defense.
Yeah, as you pointed out rightfully, the Eagles' offensive line is the best offensive line in the league. You can see that on every play, every snap. You see guys go down hurt and they refuse to come off to go back in. Like it was in the playoff, their first playoff game. I think it was their right guard went down and he's out for 2 snaps, and the backup was just dog shit. And he just was like, "I don't care, I'm going back in." And I think he was asked like, "What's it going to take for you to like get off the field if you're injured?" And he's like, "Airlifted. That's the only way you're getting me off the field in the Super Bowl." That's the mentality the Eagles' offense and defense have. So when you've got the best offensive line and the number one defense, yeah, as much as Mahomes' magic exists, even with Xavier Worthy, Juju Smith-Schuster, Travis Kelce, and whatever else they can pull out, you get into a hole like that. The old saying is, and it's still true: defense wins championships.
Yeah. I mean, even looking at some of the offensive weapons he has at his disposal, not the most explosive by any means. They just found ways to get it done this season. Speaking of Saquon Barkley, I just want to touch on the season he's had for a minute. Just absolutely phenomenal, and I'd say the Giants are still absolutely kicking themselves for letting him walk, especially to a division rival in the Eagles. I think you look back to the season, and obviously there was the game where he had the reverse hurdle and spin. And I think that just sparked the rest of the season and the absolutely dominant performances that he's put on. If he wins this Super Bowl, if the Eagles win this Super Bowl on Sunday night, does that put a cap and kind of solidify his season as one of the best seasons in NFL history?
For a running back, I'd say it would be up there. It would have been the best running back season ever if he had a broken Dickinson's record.
Which he chose not to, by the way. He had the opportunity to do that.
He was sat. He wasn't like if he had played the first half against the Giants of the last game of the season, he would have broke the record. He was thinking about it. He obviously, as a player, is not going to come out and say I want to do it. But they sat him for it. They wouldn't let him. But like that, like Saquon's the type of person to go, I want to win this, just to shove it in the Giants' face. But look how good he was with the Giants, and their offensive line was average at best. And then you put him with an offensive line like the Eagles, and how he's exploded. Like Giants fans, I'm surprised they haven't burnt down the stadium or burnt down like the general manager's office because he chose Daniel Jones over Saquon Barkley. He ignored his son on that famous viral video, and his son was like, "Draft Jaden Daniels." He's like, "We'll see," and doesn't draft Jaden Daniels. Like, like you got to feel for Giants fans with you have inept ownership like that who are just like, I don't know what they see in Daniel Jones. Who's like, we need Daniel Jones over Saquon.
Yeah, but in saying that though, it's like to Saquon Barkley become Saquon Barkley that we know today, had he stayed with the Giants, it's like he would have just had another good individual season. Like, yeah, he could still have those same kind of explosive plays, but like he wouldn't be in the position he's in if he was with the Giants. So it's just
No.
like, so like, obviously, if you're looking at it as a Giants fan, you're like, oh, raging. But at the same time, for the athlete and for the career of Saquon Barkley, this was the best thing that's ever happened. And for
Mm.
the league, it's the best thing that's ever happened. We wouldn't have seen the backwards overhead, backflip hurdle, 360
No joke.
RKO. Like you wouldn't we wouldn't have got that had he not got traded. It's like,
He wasn't even traded.
the,
He was let walk.
it's sorry, he was let walk, but like, in the end of the day, like what it's a business, and
Mm.
the Giants decided we're going to go for a wide receiver because their O line did suck. Like ultimately, it did suck. They wanted to go with a wide receiver in Malik Neighbors, who is turning out to be a really top end wide receiver. And they were like, "Oh, we have Danny Dimes, have somebody to throw to," and like that's the direction they went, and it didn't work out.
Yeah,
So that's the business. That's how football works. It's like you can't be that upset about it. It's like he was a free agent. He was allowed to walk. He went to the Eagles because the Eagles seen the spark that he could have brought, and they had the pieces of the puzzle to make it work.
yeah, but it's always going to be hindsight. Like Giants fans are always going like, "Oh, if we had kept him, it would have been better for us." But you still would have had no quarterback. So and an average offensive line. So he may not, as you said, have been as good. But like he is a unique talent. He was scouted heavily coming into the league, and just going to a team that gave him the ability to show off his talents, is a great thing to see. I think, like if he gets the Super Bowl, he's got his NFC Championship. When he gets the Super Bowl, he's put himself up there as one of the greatest running backs in the modern era.
Mm.
Just based on like his explosiveness and his like 2,000 plus yard season, very rare achievement to get. He's got the championship, he just needs the Lombardi now to cap it all off.
Did they give him league MVP at NFL Honors? Obviously, by the time this podcast goes out, we will know who has claimed the title of league MVP. But when you look at his
He'll get
season,
offensive player of the year. MVP is a quarterback award.
he gets
Yeah.
offensive player of the year, though.
Yeah, but like MVP is quarterback. Like it's very rare that they'll give it to anyone else who's not a quarterback. And I believe the last time it was a co-held was like Manning and somebody else, and the other player was, I think they were they were running back. I can't remember. That's the only time in recent memory where a running back got it. Was he shared it with Peyton Manning?
Kev, what do you reckon?
I think it was Chris Johnson, CK.
Oh, another top running back of his day. He was on the Madden cover at one stage. Remember that?
Yeah, I think he was the one who shared it with Manning. I could be wrong, but I know it was Manning and a running back shared the MVP, and that was one of the co-owners of the MVP. Like my memory escapes me, but like the honors are coming out. I'd say Saquon gets offensive, player in general. like MVP is probably going to have to go to Josh Allen at this point because he lasted longer than Lamar Jackson in the
pretty
playoffs.
much.
And then, like, defensive player, like, I'd love to go to TJ Watt, but he kind of vanished.
He's
Miles
had an off
Garrett
season.
was on a 3-13 team. He done nothing.
I think it could be
he
Jared
wants to get
Verse.
traded. I think Coach O'Connell deserves Coach of the Year. Offensive rookie it's going to go to Jaden Daniels. It's going to go to no one else. Defensive rookie, I couldn't name a defensive player that stands out to me. I'll probably get called out for that. But
Jared Verse.
Jared Verse,
yeah, he seems to be the one
out of
I
Florida
see. The
State.
name I see.
Sorry, I said him for MVP. He'll get Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Yeah.
Defensive MVP. No one's really jumping out at me. Trey Hendrickson maybe, but
Trey Hendrickson. The other reason I give it to him is because he's the sack leader. Like, it's wild to think that the Cincy Bengals have the passing leader, the receiving leader, and the sack leader, and they couldn't make the playoffs.
I'm trying to think. I'm
trying to think. The Arizona Cardinals have a good defensive player.
I'm trying to think of any defensive back or
Buda Baker.
Zach Bond, actually, from what I've seen of the Eagles game, Zach Bond, the Eagles linebacker, would be my pick for defensive MVP, just because of he started out. I think he was either undrafted or a late round draft pick. He played special teams for the Saints, then got an opportunity with the Eagles, and now he's a starter, a middle linebacker, captain, signal caller. And he's the only one that's really stood out to me that would be deserving of the title, but it's a hard one to call.
Yeah,
I'm gonna call it here. Offensive Rookie of the Year, Jaden Daniels is gonna have a year or two just like CJ Stroud. He's gonna fall off a cliff.
Really?
Calling it right now. Yeah,
I
can see it.
Sophomore slump.
Yeah, exactly. Now, to be fair, CJ Stroud did kind of pull it back together a little bit towards the end of the season, but you just can't do that. Like, as the season that he had last year to kind of back it up with this year, it's not good enough. So I just I could see it happening with Washington just because it's Washington and they're just not used to success. And I think that's kind of what happened in Houston was they weren't used to the success and they weren't used to like that pressure going into a season being like, because realistically when you look at it now, it's like the pecking order in the NFC East is going to be Eagles, Commanders, Dallas, and then the Giants, so that's probably the first time that's happened in a long, long time. So you have to think that that's going to be like a big talking point for them next year. And I think that will ultimately come down on Jaden Daniels a bit more than we might think.
All right. I think we've discussed this topic enough. It's overdone, as you said, but I think it is time for our predictions now. So lads,
just before we get into predictions, I will correct myself. The co-MVP I was talking about was Manning and Steve McNair, and then MVP running backs. There've been a few I've forgotten. I will say I'm mentally drained, but like,
did Adrian Peterson ever pick one up?
Adrian Peterson,
yeah, I thought so.
The great Jim Brown, like Sean Alexander, Walter Payton, like Man of the Year award. So there've been a fair few. LaDainian Tomlinson picked one up. So there've been a fair few running back MVPs, but I don't think Saquon's going to take it off Josh Allen.
No,
unless if he wins the Super Bowl, maybe. But the awards are tonight, so
yeah,
that's not going to happen.
That's not going to happen.
But,
he might get MVP of the game though. Like, there's a very, very strong chance of it.
Yeah.
Even though that does usually go to a quarterback again, but I think that just the way the Eagles play, if they win it, if Saquon runs for 170 yards and scores 2 touchdowns, it's going to be really difficult not to give him MVP.
I think it's less likely to go to a running back, though. I mean, if a different player position has a good game or a standout performance, they will typically give it to that player.
Well, I mean,
anyway, we'll do our predictions. So, lads, I want to know your Super Bowl predictions, score, and why you think the team you chose is going to win. Twist, go for it.
Eagles going to win it because nobody wants a threepeat. They're going to win it because Saquon is going to run more than 191 yards in the Super Bowl, which will break the Super Bowl rushing record, further etching his name in the history books. They're going to decimate the Chiefs they're going to win by 14 or more points. And they're going to host the Lombardi, and a photograph that's going to pierce the hearts of Steeler fans everywhere is Kenny Pickett's going to be holding the Lombardi with that long flowing hair, wearing the number 7 of John Elway.
Kev, give me your pick.
Yeah, it's going to be Stomptown. Eagles are going to bring it back to Philadelphia. It's not even going to be. I just don't think it'll be close after the first quarter. I really do believe that that is going to be the case. I, I think that the Eagles have the physicality to just stomp on the Chiefs, and I just don't think that there's been a team this year that has really challenged them in that way. So I'm really intrigued to see how this one goes, but I'm definitely going to go. I'm going to go like a 17-point margin for the Eagles.
Okay, we are going Eagles across the board then, because I am backing the Birds to crush
Go Birds.
the Chiefs' conquest for the three-peat. Yeah, Eagles win it. They get the revenge for 2 years
That's
ago.
absolutely criminal by you lads. Picking another Philadelphia or another
Look, what can you do?
Pennsylvania team. That is
It's a
absolutely
lesser of
criminal.
two evils. It's
Hey,
either
listen,
bad
know,
move for the
we used
Chiefs.
to.
Do you know, actually, that you lads really need to have a good heart. Go into the mirror now when we get off here and have
We
a
used to be
real
the
hard, long
Steagles,
look at
baby.
yourself.
We used to be the Pennsylvania Steagles.
I'm buying you both Eagles jerseys if they win this weekend.
Well,
Just saying.
if you're gonna get me an Eagles jersey, get me with the number 2-1. Get me the number
Okay.
2-1-2 on it, because Saquon's gonna run 212 yards and 3 touchdowns.
I'm gonna get you number 7 with Pickett on the back.
I'll hang it up on the wall with my number 8 Pickett that's signed.
I think if you're not a Chiefs fan this weekend, you're definitely an Eagles fan. It's anyone but Kansas City this weekend.
Yeah.
Right, we will definitely be back to review
Anyone
that
but
game.
Chiefs.
But before we finish up, there is something else we need to talk about, and it is an international NFL game that is not the Steelers in
Trust
Dublin.
me, bro. Trust me, bro.
It's not the Steelers in Dublin. I was watching the international press conference last night. I almost lost my shit when they were announcing the history. I was like, "What is going on here?" But it wasn't. It wasn't the Steelers. I got a heart attack for no reason. It is the Los Angeles Rams playing the first ever NFL game in Melbourne, Australia, which is pretty cool. The NFL is expanding to the other side of the planet. They're going down under. Kev, what do you think? Is it a good move or a bad move? What are your kind of thoughts on the first game, the NFL game down in Australia?
Yeah, I mean, look, great news. Just expand the game into more regions. Just get more eyeballs on the game. I think it's great. I think like no matter where the NFL goes, there's a lot of interest. There's a lot of talk. It's like even today was in the staff room at work, and I heard people talking about the whispers of what might be in Dublin, and people, everyone's on the same conversation that we've been having now for about 12 months at this, but yeah, it feels like what 12 months, so look, I think it's exciting whenever the NFL does expand to a different region and a different area of the world, and look, Australia, cool spot, not one person on the northern hemisphere is going to watch it, but sure, look,
or travel down for that matter.
yeah, the stadium might be empty,
Book
and
your flights now for Melbourne for 2026, because it's going to cost you a couple of grand just to get there.
I think it is good to see the expansion continue. The Rams make sense. You want West Coast teams to go take that journey. So I wouldn't get too hyped about who the opponents would be. Possible opponents are obviously going to be closer to
the
Chargers, Raiders, Cardinals, Seahawks would be
Seahawks potentially. Yeah,
I don't think they'll do I don't think they'll do a divisional game.
Well,
divisional games are too much of a draw for. They're not going to give up a divisional home game.
Well, look at it this way: a divisional game in SoFi, like you talk to anyone who is a Chargers fan or a Rams fan. When the Chargers are playing, the stands are full of Rams and Raiders fans. When the other team's playing, it's like Chargers and Raiders. When the Raiders come to visit, it's like Chargers and Rams. So like there's no dedicated home crowd in SoFi, because there's like LA is just flooded with teams that keep chopping and changing.
Yeah.
So I think it would be with the one time where the NFL will actually allow a divisional game to be played outside of like the stadium.
That makes sense,
from the logistical side. I know. I said it to Kev. I was like, watch, the NFL will send the Rams down to play Sunday Night Football then they'll have them on Thursday Night Football and Monday Night Football because they don't give an absolute crap about teams. Look what they done to
Player welfare is
look what they done
the
to
bottom of the list.
the Ravens,
That
the
question
Texans,
actually
and the
came up during the
Steelers.
international press conference last night, and it was a question around, long travel times for players, especially going. I mean, I'm fairly sure Australia to Los Angeles is the longest transatlantic flight in the world.
Trans-Pacific.
We even look at, just for comparison's sake, when the teams play in London and Germany, they don't get a day's rest before they fly out. They go straight after the game. So you're not even getting time to recover properly or cool down or anything. You are straight on a bus and straight onto a plane. So you can only imagine what it'll do to those Rams players coming back.
But like, even though after the Vikings played in London, like we had a bye week this week and they flew straight back the next day. Like they were not hanging around. So like, I mean, in the end of the day, like what organizations want is to get their players back in the building, get them assessed, get them into recovery mode ASAP, because ultimately if you give yourself 24 hours more in the city that you're staying in, it's like, first of all, your players can be acting the bollocks. Like that's probably first and
Weird.
foremost for yeah, exactly. That's going to be your first and foremost thought. It's like, at least if they're going to be acting the mick, do it in the city that they're from, or do it in a local, like somewhere local where they can't actually get in too much trouble. It's like you're in unknown waters. Do you know what I mean, though? Like
NFL players,
that's
if they want to find trouble, they're going to find trouble. Though I remember Patrick
yeah, of
Mahomes
course, but like
promising
it's
to pay players if they didn't go out in Vegas after the Super Bowl, and not one went out. They all took Pat Mahomes' money.
that is exactly why the Chiefs should
It
not
shouldn't be
win this.
moved. Yeah.
Do you know? Let's just leave it at that, 'cause that's just going to piss me right off.
I hope their bus explodes.
Whoa! All right.
And on that note,
Make sure to stay tuned to Gaelic Gridiron throughout the weekend for Super Bowl coverage. Make sure you check out our preview piece on the website GaelicGridiron.com. Massive thank you to these lads for their time during the season. We will be back to review the game, recap the season. Thank you to everyone who's been listening and supporting us throughout the year as well. It's great to see our numbers keep going up and up with streams. So keep liking, keep commenting, keep sharing, tell your friends, and lads, we'll talk to you soon. All the best.